In early 1965, hostilities between the U.S. and Vietnam took a dramatic turn. President Lyndon Johnson approved Operation Rolling Thunder, an intense bombing campaign against North Vietnam. The Air Force then needed secret locations for its tactical air navigation equipment, called TACANs, used to guide bombers into North Vietnam. They turned to Bill Lair to recommend a spot for one of the TACANs in northern Laos. Immediately, Lair thought of a spectacular mountain named Phu Pa Thi, with an existing airstrip called Landing Site 85.
Site 85 was one of the tallest mountains in Laos, if not the tallest mountain, which is approximately 12 miles south of the North Vietnamese border and 125 miles outside of Hanoi, Haiphong area.
It looked right into North Vietnam, and you were dropping the bombs on Hanoi and those places where it really hurt them.
The equipment on top of Phu Pa Thi provided the Air Force with invaluable navigational guidance. But despite its steep and secluded location and protection by General Vang Pao's troops, Bill Lair gave the Air Force a warning about Site 85.
I said, you got to remember one thing. Once you get something up there, if it's useful and you're really using it, I mean, eventually the North Vietnamese will find out about it.
The Air Force considered Lair's concerns, but decided to begin construction of the TACAN installation in the summer of 1966. It was the closest American outpost to North Vietnam. Even though Site 85 was secret, the North Vietnamese soon realized that American bombers were getting excellent radar and navigational guidance from somewhere. Its strategic location made Phu Pa Thi a likely suspect.
Where the TACAN site was, it probably dropped off just straight for 1,000 feet. Then it went into a rock slide for another 1,000 or 1,500 feet.
In order to keep a low profile, the installation was a tiny one, just a radar beacon, living quarters, some equipment shacks, and a helicopter pad, which was the primary means of transport to and from the mountaintop. The dozen or so men assigned there were undercover.
The men who worked on Phu Pa Thi were Air Force technicians, actually from the Strategic Air Command, who were sheep-dipped. That is, they were pretending to work as civilian contractors. They officially resigned their Air Force jobs. They were rehired by Lockheed Aircraft, supposedly as civilian technicians.
In the summer of 1967, after only a year of operation, the Air Force upgraded its capability on Site 85 with the Combat Sky Spot radar system. The new equipment was a state-of-the-art guidance system that allowed the flight controllers at Site 85 to direct the bombing missions over North Vietnam with greater accuracy. It also allowed the strike aircraft to fly above the weather and anti-aircraft attacks, which was much safer for the pilots.
It was very key to the bombing of North Vietnam on a regular basis, so they wouldn't be halted during bad weather. And approximately 25% of all bombing was done from this site.
The new guidance system required the airlifting of 150 tons of sophisticated electronic and radar equipment to the mountaintop, a feat not likely to go unnoticed by North Vietnamese patrols. Still, knocking out the installation would not be easy.
There were sheer cliffs up one side of the mountain, could only really be easily approached down the other side where the defenses were concentrated. The North Vietnamese also had no road into the area, and they spent several months actually building a road approaching Phu Pa Thi in order to bring their artillery and heavy weapons within range where they could strike the mountain.
We got fogged in up there for 9 days straight. And that fog, 9 days later, cleared out. And we looked out east, and here was a road right to this VC outpost. And they'd gone about right around 10 kilometers with that road in those 9 days. Right then, we knew we were going to be in trouble then.
Predictably, small skirmishes broke out as North Vietnamese forces probed the Hmong defenses around the mountain. But what happened next was utterly unprecedented. On the afternoon of January 12, 1968, Ted Moore was piloting his Huey helicopter on a routine supply mission when he spotted something he almost didn't believe. 2 North Vietnamese biplanes were headed directly for Site 85.
And as I watched them, the first aircraft, flying very low, probably 100, 200 feet off the deck, came in on the site and released what I assumed were bombs. My crew chief, Glenn Woods, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Cap Moore," he said, "I've got an AK-47 with armor-piercing tracer in my suitcase." He said, "Would you like to go after those aircraft?" And I said, "Certainly would."
After bombing Site 85, the biplanes lumbered back toward the North Vietnamese border, and the Huey gave chase. Flying above the target, Ted Moore yelled to his crew chief that he could give him only 1 shot.
Glenn opened up with an AK-47. By the time I was able to turn around, make my complete loop to see what had happened, the first aircraft was burning underneath me. The other one I did not see.
The Soviet-built AN-2 Colt crashed near Site 85, giving Ted Moore and Glenn Woods a remarkable distinction.
This is the first time, if not the only time, that a helicopter has ever shot down a fixed-wing aircraft in air combat.
Despite the successful air engagement with the enemy, it was ominous news for the sheep-dip technicians.
I think they were sending us a message. We know you're there. Get out.
In the early months of 1968, with a division of North Vietnamese regulars approaching, the Air Force technicians at Site 85 faced a grave situation. They were on top of a mountain with a few CIA officers, but with only 1,300 Hmong friendlies for protection. Their lives were in danger.
These guerrillas can't stand up and fight toe-to-toe with the North Vietnamese Infantry Division. The North Vietnamese infantry, I think, was as good as any infantry in the world at that time.
There was a growing fear because they could see and hear the sounds of battle coming close for a couple of months. So there was growing fear to the degree that they themselves took time off to dig special emplacements and hiding places along the side of the cliff.
That's when we called Bill Air. I told him, you know, something's going to happen. You better get these guys off the mountain.
Lair contacted the Air Force and the U.S. ambassador to emphasize that Site 85 was now the major target for the North Vietnamese. The ambassador had the ultimate authority to order an evacuation, but after he consulted with the Air Force, it was decided to wait until the last possible moment.
They figured this operation was saving the lives of 2 or 3 pilots a day. That's what they said. And if you put the technicians up there, you're risking that number of technicians against, but if you stayed another month, if you're 2 or 3 a day, you're talking about a lot of pilots. It sounded to me like then it was worth taking some risks for.
As enemy forces surrounded the mountain, the frequency of skirmishes intensified. The Air Force technicians began to make plans to evacuate the site. But on the evening of March 10, 1968, Phu Pa Thi came under heavy artillery fire.
It was the first artillery attack I'd been in, and it was flat scary. And I'm sure those other guys that's out there defending the place, they thought, geez, what's going to happen? Are they going to come up the sides after us?
With the bombardment as a diversion, a well-trained group of North Vietnamese did what everyone thought was impossible. Scaling a 2,000-foot cliff, they took the technicians completely by surprise.
Then we heard the firing up on top there, small arms fire. And there's some bullets even zinging down around where we were. And we didn't know if that was friendlies or who it was, so we kind of snuck back in the bunker, you know, kind of looking around so we didn't have to get shot.
The attackers overran Site 85, killing 11 of the 18 men on duty.
We knew that something hit the fan, but nobody talked about any losses of any military up at the site. Everybody assumed that everybody got out. The pilots there was only one Air America pilot involved in it. He never said a word. And just like with my shoot down in the aircraft, I was told not to talk to anybody about it.
In a top-secret, now declassified cable to the State Department, U.S. Ambassador William Sullivan reported, it appears we may have pushed our luck one day too long in attempting to keep this facility in operation.
They said, we'll do everything we can to get you out. Something like that, you know. But there's not really much they can do.
As the survivors were hastily airlifted away, another controversial decision was made.
The embassy panicked, and they issued the order that every American and every Thai had to be off of there by nightfall.
Fearing that Site 85 was in enemy hands, the Air Force bombed it to destroy all traces of the high-tech equipment. The result of the bombing? The bodies of the 11 dead Americans would never be recovered.
They were afraid the enemy's going to get this secret radar thing, so they came in and started bombing before we ever got the friendlies off. We had a lot of friendlies got hurt in that bombing.
It was the beginning of the end of the secret war.